All right, who else do I have here? Let's see. Well, hi, Tom. Welcome.
I never know when my dogs are going to break out in song, so I keep myself muted.
Well, okay.
And hello, everybody.
So, Tom, I have a question for you. I'm going to make you unmute again.
Yes.
Are you here as part of the program? Or are you just making it up?
Yeah, no, I'm just here for the program. So,
Okay, well, let me ask you this. If your casual area Rotarian or Rotarian from around the world wanted to make up at Catalina Rotary, how does he find out the Zoom link? Are you on our distribution?
no, actually, I emailed Bob last night and got that. So,
Okay.
yeah, you guys don't seem to have it public like a lot of clubs do.
Yeah, we don't. We're a little,
Which is good.
We're a little afraid of being hacked, but
Yeah. I mean, it makes for an interesting meeting when that happens, but usually kind of offensive, but
yeah, no doubt. Just thank you. Just something I'm thinking about for as we're moving forward.
Okay, it's 10 minutes after the hour of 12. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone. Just as an FYI, Mr. Nortonson is recording us and puts that up on a YouTube video after the meeting, if you want to go look at that. After we do the pledge, then I believe Sharon has her invocation. Then we'll have a little discussion of just some current events, and we'll get then to our speakers. I see both Lance and Angie are both here, so I welcome you guys. And also Tom, welcome, join the meeting. So with that, we'll get started. Yes. Come on now.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Sharon, if you would unmute, thank you.
Hi, everybody. As Rotarians, we value the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. The third question is, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Let's linger on that word friendships for a moment. According to real science, research done by the Mayo Clinic, friendships can have a major impact on your health and well-being. Friends can help you celebrate good times and provide support during bad times. Friendships help prevent loneliness and give you a chance to offer needed companionship. Friends can also increase your sense of belonging and purpose, boost your happiness and reduce your stress, improve your self-confidence and self-worth, help you to cope with traumas such as divorce, serious illness, or death of a loved one, and encourage you to change or avoid unhappy and unhealthy lifestyles. Friends can also play a significant role in promoting your overall health. Adults with strong social support have a reduced risk of many significant health problems, including depression, high blood pressure, and an unhealthy body mass index. Studies have even found that older adults with a rich social life are likely to live longer than their peers with fewer connections and live longer, up to 50% longer. So Rotary service builds goodwill and better friendships. But the bottom line, good friends in Rotary are good for your health.
Thank you. So true. Yes, absolutely. I'd like to welcome Tom Nelson visiting. I see, it looks like Pat, have you made it all the way back east? Yeah, I see we've got Merle. And there's BJ, Joanne, Doris, I see. So glad you all could make it. Oh, looky who else. We even had somebody sneak into Sharon's shot there. You get that, Tony or Matt, whoever's taking attendance today. Appreciate that. Two or three things to remind everybody about before we get into the meeting, the program. One, again, I want to thank Mr. Steve Pender for updating the webpage. If you haven't, go look at it. It's Catalina Rotary, catalinarotary.org, and you can look at it. It's updated and it's a lot slicker and smoother and nicer. So take some time with that. Keep up. Hopefully, a couple people have made it to their 200 mile on their mile walk here. That we've been challenged by a couple other clubs, and get that information to Bobby D. I don't see Frank, but I think he was maybe at the 300 mile mark or something like that. Who knows? But he was going to town. We're looking at having a social on May 27th, probably where we were before. Everybody can get together. I think the CDC says we may actually even be able to smile and look at each other now if you got your shots. And then also I put in the wagon wheel note by Paul Harris, if you're kind of getting started in that, with Frank offering some points. And then also they had another tryout this morning. It sounds like things went fairly well with the Viscount. We're looking to try to have a hybrid meeting with, you can either call in or video in or actually show up at the Viscount. More to come as we go, but we're kind of heading in that direction. So I got our fingers crossed with that. So that's kind of what's going on at this point in time with things. I'm going to go ahead and, in the interest of time, and kind of, oh, Arturo, good to see you too. So hand things over to Mr. Grady, who will be introducing our speakers today to talk about the need that's out there. And welcome both Angie and Lance to come, because this is a program I think that the club is behind and would like to see have some improvements in some areas that we can actually help out with. So, Mr. McGrady, take it away.
Thank you, President Paul. So NEED, or the Network for Equity and Education Development, hopefully needs no introduction in our club. It is a community collaborative with a mission to reduce disparities for Black youth in the juvenile justice system, in which today's speakers, Angie Lopez and Lance Meeks will elaborate. Just as a reminder, the Catalina Rotary Board of Directors and members approved the club's participation in the NEED Collaborative earlier this year as one of the club's 4 racial justice initiatives. Many of you also contributed to buying baskets and supplies for the NEED Hope Basket event earlier this year. Achieving racial justice is hard, and if you don't believe that, just look at the progress that has been made over the last 2 centuries to achieve that. It's been slow. What it demands is a group of people with dedication, focus, and intelligence who are willing to work hard and long and over and above their main jobs. Bob Delaney and I have had the privilege of working pretty closely with Lance and Angie and about 30 other people involved with NEED for the past 6 months. And let me tell you, they are great examples of what it will take to move the needle on racial justice. You've read hopefully read Angie's and Lance's bios on Wagon Wheel, so I'm not going to go over that. But I did ask Angie and Lance, what's a passion? What's something you're most proud of? Angie said being a mother is her most important role, and that she's proud and grateful to work with the juvenile court, and particularly the community collaboration to serve the youth and families in our community. Lance is most thankful for his 9-year-old daughter, who he loves to spoil, and also for the opportunity to help youth achieve their goals. He did say something about the Minnesota Vikings, but we're not going to go there for sure. So beyond that odd reference to the Vikings, You know, what they said in their bios are eerily similar to our club's mission, changing the lives of children in need. So Catalina Rotary, I am most proud to introduce two young people who are strong champions of a better tomorrow. Angie and Lance, take it away.
Bob, thank you so much. What a kind and genuine introduction. We so appreciate that. And I just want to thank, on behalf of Lance and I and all of Need, thank you so much for the opportunity today. But even above that, thank you for your commitment to our work. We truly appreciate you guys being a part of this work and all of your contributions so far. So I really wanted to just start with that piece. Anything you wanted to say, Lance, before I kick us off?
Such a wonderful introduction, Bob. We appreciate you. We appreciate the Catalina Rotary Club for having both Angie and myself today. You know, we look forward to continue to working together. So thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, I put together a brief PowerPoint, so I'm going to try to put that up on the screen for everybody.
Fingers crossed it works. I turned all the buttons on, so.
Okay, all fingers are crossed. Let me see. Back on the Zoom screen.
Yep.
Okay, are you
Yay.
guys able to see that?
Yeah.
Yay, it's working. All right, let me see if I can get there we go. So as Bob mentioned, I am privileged to co-chair the Network for Equity in Education Development, which I know you guys have received information about, and thank you so much for everybody that has discussed our work and helped promote it. And so we just wanted to dig a little deeper and talk really about how the group got started, give you some context of how it came about, who's involved, some of our efforts thus far, and what we're working on right now. And then certainly we want to hear from all of you if you have any questions. So please feel free to ask those as we go. So really before I go there, so I'll start with the Pima County Juvenile Court, which my main role there is I oversee the system improvement, the juvenile justice system improvement work. So there's been ongoing efforts since the early 2000s, about 2004, for the Pima County Juvenile Court to really take a look at the way that we do business, the way that we administer juvenile justice, and really ask ourselves, can we do this differently? And the basis of all that work is really using data to drive our efforts, but a heavy emphasis on community collaboration and identifying and addressing disparities through collaboration and data. And so since that early work in the 2000s, we have seen drastic decreases in our referrals to the juvenile court and also the use of our detention facility. Back in that day, I worked as a detention officer back then, so I bring that experience, and I remember that we had almost 200 kids a day in detention at that time, and today we have 28. And so to make that happen, that didn't just happen because of the juvenile court. That happened of collaborative efforts, creating alternatives to detention, giving our probation officers additional tools to do things differently. But as we've seen, and we're proud of those reductions, but disparities persist. And that is the core focus of our work to improve the juvenile justice system, because you can't have a just system if it's not equitable. So there has been ongoing efforts to address disparities since the very beginning. And the NEED Collaborative was really born out of a training that we received back in 2017 from the W. Haywood Burns Institute. And these are leading experts nationally. This organization provides technical assistance and support to juvenile courts and folks across the state addressing disparities. So the Burns Institute came in, provided a training using our local data, and really indicated that although Black youth represent a small portion of the population, about 5% of our youth population, they were very overrepresented in the referrals and throughout our justice system. So that group decided at that moment that we wanted Black youth to be our focus, and that the training also brought out that there was a need for additional community collaboration. And so through that, and at the time I had a different role, I was working for the state, but I did attend that training alongside Lance, community folks, justice partners. And the Palo Verde Neighborhood Collaborative was born. Well, the Palo Verde Neighborhood Collaborative, we've evolved into need because we found out that there's a neighborhood association that was very, very protective of their name, and we didn't want to be confused with the neighborhood association. So our name has evolved, but the work really, this collaborative came out of that training at that time. Is there anything you want to add to that piece, Lance?
No, I think you're right on point, Angie.
Okay, keep me on track, keep me in line. So from that time forward, the committee really has evolved. And so the initial efforts were really digging into our data, looking at probation violations, looking at ways that we could include additional community partners, really digging into our data. And this is where we have grown. This is what we've grown to be. All of the organizations that you see represented on this slide are currently a part of NEED, including the Catalina Rotary Club, which we're very grateful for. Also additional community members and advocates, business owners. And some of the things that, oh, and I want to present this little bit of data first. So I talked about, let me go back. I talked about, it's generally between 4 and 6% of our juvenile population in Pima County, or Black youth, here 6.5. But they represent about 12% of the referrals, and in specific zip codes, up to 24%. So what does that mean in those zip codes? Out of every 4 referrals that we receive at the juvenile court are for Black youth. And when I say referrals, I'm talking about they can either be arrested, we call that a physical referral when law enforcement brings them to our detention door, or law enforcement can give them a citation and then they go through the court process and we call that a paper referral, but all are referrals. So our data indicated, again, Black youth very overrepresented in our system, but the NEED Collaborative really drilled down into the zip codes where we're seeing the most overrepresentation. And so that's where we really started getting traction with our work and digging into the community work. I can't seem to get my arrows correct, so thanks for your patience, everybody. So as was mentioned earlier by Bob, our goal is, and we try to be very intentional of messaging, this collaborative is to address the disparities we see for Black youth in the juvenile justice system. And some of the work that we've done thus far, so using that zip code data, we collaborated with over 60 community agencies to host the neighborhood block party. This was back in 2019, and the whole goals for this big event were to build relationships within the community. So we chose Freedom Park. If any of you are familiar with Freedom Park, it's not the fanciest, prettiest park, and that was by intention. It was right in the middle of an area that we saw disparities in the referrals that we were receiving. So part of that effort was cleaning up the park and trying to make that a space for people in the community. So building relationships and connecting youth and families to existing resources. And so what that grew into, and it took months of planning and coordination by all the folks involved in NEED. And there were over 60 agencies there that day, 40 resource providers. We served nearly 500 people. There were, the police department was a huge part of that, and the school resource officers out there just engaging with folks in the community. The University of Arizona athletes and mascots were there. Gap Ministry was serving food. We were giving away backpacks, supplies. And I should say that all of that happened with some intentional work that folks that have been involved in NEED longer than myself were a part of. So focus groups and surveys to really identify the needs of the folks in that community. Lance, would you talk about that piece a little bit? Because I really don't want to overlook how we got there.
Yeah, I was, thanks, Angie. I was going to say, as you're talking about the neighborhood block party, and we always talk about lessons learned. So when Angie talked about the initial training from the Burns Institute, one of the strategies that we left from that training was we needed to do some outreach to families and youth in these particular zip codes. And so we decided that we wanted to put together an event that focused on serving young people and their families, so some focus groups. And the event that we kind of put together was we wanted to make sure that we had food available youth and families because it was going to be in the evening after work and school. We had childcare set up. We had transportation if that was needed. We had community members from the NAACP, Tucson Urban League. We were very intentional about bringing those who were going to be a part of the focus groups that looked like the individuals that we wanted to gain this information from. And what happened was, we held this event at Palo Verde High School. And when we placed the logos and stuff on the flyer, we had TUSD and the Pima County Juvenile Court Center. And we didn't get the turnout that we expected. But what we gained from the young people that were surveyed and families was that they talked about if they were students at Palo Verde High School, that right after high school, they would be rushed off the campus. If they couldn't be on the campus, they go to the business district right next door. Because there had been fights and problems before, the business district didn't really want them over there. They didn't want them grouping up together as, 3 or 4, friends. The neighborhood association really didn't want these young people to be around either. So from what we heard from the mouths of youth were that they didn't feel welcomed and there were no other resources, or, maybe they didn't know about the resources in those areas. And that is kind of what led us to understanding that, for one, we have a problem that we as a community, we have to repair the relationships with these young folks. And that's kind of what led us to the Neighborhood Block Party. Was successful, as Angie was saying, but there was a lesson learned. And so with that Neighborhood Block Party, what we also wanted to do was make sure that we had youth involved in the planning process, youth involved in helping us with outreach. And so that was something that took place, and it was a wonderful event. I think I'll leave off. I'll let you continue, Angie.
So that was perfect. I'm so, grateful for that context for sure, because we would not have been successful with the Neighborhood Block Party had it not been for all the efforts that led up to that and all those lessons learned. So through that event afterwards, we looked at our referrals because yes, we were trying to build relationships and connect people to resources, but also the school resource officers were heavily involved in that process. And surprisingly, and it was encouraging to us what we saw afterwards when comparing the quarter following the event to the same quarter the previous year, we experienced an 18% reduction in school referrals for Black youth and a 20% reduction in violations of probation for Black youth. So we know that one community event is not going to solve disparities. We wish it would, but we used that to keep our momentum going, and some things that we've been working on since then. We partnered with Tucson Police Department and the School Resource Officer Program to develop an alternative to arrest program for young people that commit offenses within schools, and our hope would be that they are handled within schools if at all possible and not brought into the justice system at all. So NEED was allowed to give some feedback on that process. And I hear, because you guys may have been aware of this too, there's been a lot of talk about, do we want to continue having a school resource officer program? And there's been a big debate about that. And so what I hear from the leaders of Tucson Police Department, as far as their school resource officers go, is that this is their plan. If they continue the program, that this would be their first. They're asking their officers that this be kind of the default response unless there's a reason they couldn't use this alternative to arrest program. So NEED gave feedback, and really through the lens of ensuring it was an equitable process available to everybody. We've also, during COVID, we organized a COVID hygiene drive. We recognized that the families of color experienced the greatest impact from COVID, and that youth of color were overrepresented in our detention facility. And so we collected personal protective equipment and hygiene items, and those were handed out to youth leaving the detention facility during COVID. More recently, and this is a huge effort and Wouldn't be possible without the support of the Catalina Rotary Club with the Hope Baskets. And the whole purpose of that was, again, collecting resource items. And we wanted to know, again, from young people, what do you need? So we did some surveys with young people on probation. They identified the items that they found would be most useful and an important piece of those baskets as well. So they went in the laundry baskets that you all purchased, and thank you again. But there were also community resources. So we put together a little packet, a card in there. The first thing we wanted them to see was, it said, "You matter." And then there was all kinds of resources available, the things that are available through Goodwill, the different mentoring groups, the bereavement support group, all of the flyers from the organizations represented in need, really just wanting to let folks know what's available. And Lance, because you were a part of the team that went out and delivered those, so those are going to youth in group homes, living in group homes and youth on probation. Can you share a little bit about that experience, please?
Yeah, we were, very thankful to have our juvenile probation officers and our Tucson police officers help us out with delivering those Hope Baskets. And once again, we wanted to make sure that we had officers, Black officers that would be engaging with these families. And not all of the youth were present when we were delivering the baskets, but one thing that stuck out to my mind was that we had a grandfather and his granddaughter wasn't home at the time. And he had lived in Tucson about 20 years. And he said this is the first time he's seen 3 or 4 Black officers. And he was just touched that there were people who cared about his granddaughter and their family. And so it just really put that on me and the others who were helping out, that this is really impactful. We know, as Angie said earlier, there's not a large percentage of Blacks in Tucson, Arizona. So it was very impactful for that grandfather and some of the other families. And it also gave purpose for our law enforcement officers. It also gave purpose to our probation officers. So it was a good feeling that day, and we couldn't have done it definitely without you all donating the baskets in general.
Thank you, Lance. And we continue to get a lot of positive feedback. We've had parents reach out through our need email and say thank you. Probation officers are very grateful. We've now distributed almost 80. And so little by little, we're continuing to collect more items, because I believe our goal was 216. And so we're working on it. But everyone is very appreciative. So thank you all so much. Also, part of what has come out of the NEED Collaborative, I think countless collaborations and things that kind of offshoot because of NEED. A group of NEED members gave feedback on the Tucson Police Department Explorer program. So those are the efforts to recruit young people into law enforcement, and through the lens of, are we intentionally recruiting Black youth? Are there Black officers that are a part of those efforts? So our group has given a lot of feedback and worked closely with Tucson Police Department on a variety of things. A local business owner, I'll give a shout out to ATL Wings on Broadway, is a part of NEED and committed to me early on, because he was doing something previously and opened up ATL Wings and said, give me some time to get it off the ground and then I'll hire your kids. And he has. We've sent 3 young people over on probation and he gave them opportunities on the spot. And so it's often hard for our young people to get those employment opportunities. So we're very grateful for all of the committed folks that are part of NEED and the work that they take into the community. Takes us, see if I can get the slide to go. So I talked to you a little bit about what we've done so far, and then our continued work really is around continued community outreach. I know that both Bob's on the call, Lance and I have all been a part of events, most recently Pillars and Bridges. We were out at a community drive-through food giveaway. Really any group that we're invited to come and share about what NEED does and be honest about our mission and see if folks have a shared mission and want to work together. We welcome everybody to be a part of our group. But that takes a lot of work, just getting out there and sharing the information and inviting folks in. And so our current focus this year is really in kind of 3 buckets: youth engagement, family engagement, and community engagement. We recognize we really can't support young people without intentionally looking for ways to support their family and the community that's going to support them. I mean, that's a big part of the work we do at the juvenile court, is look for sustainable community supports within the community, because the goal is that young people are only with us for a little while, and then we want them connected to supports that can carry them on. So those are kind of our 3 main focus areas. We're also awaiting, we have a research team at the juvenile court that is putting together a decision point analysis for us that should really pinpoint specific disparities at decision, whether there are referrals coming into the court, or are there disparities in who's offered diversion programs or along the way. So we're wanting to use that data to inform our work down the road as well. Lance, anything I've missed up to this point? That must mean I'm like right on target.
Yeah, you're right on point. I would just like to say, there's other groups and organizations that we've gone out and presented to. We've gone to the NAACP General Council, general meetings, the IMA, local churches. So we really try to get out, as well as our other members of need, to really try to spread the word, and to work on, allowing the community to know what we're trying to do. I'm always amazed that every time I bring this up and nobody knows about it. So we're trying to spread the word so that others, community members, whoever would like to participate, can join with us.
Thank you, Lance. And I'll really circle back to something Sharon said when we opened, that, friends and support, we all need that. Well, the youth and families in our communities need that for their well-being as well. And so I know that's really what we're committed to doing, is to talking to young people, and we're working on recruiting more youth voices in our group to find out what the needs are and helping folks navigate through those needs. So thank you guys so much for your time, and I'll open it to any questions.
If you could hold that, excuse me, stop your screen share, and then what we usually do is either the chat or people pop in questions there or raise their hands virtually. So what do we see?
We have a question from Tom Nelson. Tom, you've got your hand raised, I see. Why don't you unmute and go ahead?
Thank you. Say, and it's great to see you both, Angie and Lance, and I'm hoping that in the future I might be able to participate a little bit more as I start spending more time in Tucson, but I'm not sure just exactly when that's happening yet. But I've got actually 2 questions. So the first one, I saw this last night, and it was a video. Many so-called alternatives to mass incarceration are actually 21st century shackles, which was, so what they were talking about is the mainly the privatization of monitoring. And so I was curious if the kids who are out on supervision, are they monitored in any way in regards to electronic monitoring?
They can be. So we
Okay.
use GPS monitoring. That was part of our system improvement efforts last year, was developing a checklist to ensure that we're only using those monitors for kids that would otherwise be in detention that pose a community safety risk. And so really trying to develop a more intentional process of how we were using GPS. But yes, in some cases we do.
Okay, but typically they're going to be, like you identified, as somebody violent or whatever. And
Yeah, it can be for kids. And so we have standard probation and intensive probation. But
Okay,
we also have lower levels of probation too. Evaluation, if you think of like kids just committing some low level offense, getting a consequence and never having to be on formal probation. That's the majority of the referrals we receive. Consequence, complete that, you're done, and your court record is destroyed.
okay,
But if they do end up in those higher levels, so if they're awaiting going through the court process and maybe commit a burglary or a more dangerous offense, and the probation officer and the court is concerned about the community safety while they go through the process, that's another way they could also end up on GPS. So we were really trying to look into that and see, how we're utilizing it and ensure that we're only using it when we need to.
great, great.
Because you're absolutely right. It can drive kids really deep into the system really fast.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, the data is definitely is showing that the people on monitoring are typically, it's a feeder back into the jail. And that these same companies who have the prison beds that they're leasing back to, or managing or whatever, that they are also in the monitoring game very, very deeply now. And it just blows me away that we have turned so much of this over to private companies who are making money at it, and actually, just making things worse from what I can see. So, and then secondly, I just wanted to ask real quick on now the school you mentioned. So do they have the high school? What is that again? Down
It was Palo Verde High School.
Palo Verde, okay. And so they have no like after school programs whatsoever, or?
Well, there are some after school activities, but if you were a student and you weren't active in those, whether it's going to be basketball or cheerleading or whatever,
Right.
you were asked to leave the campus. So, and then too, not to just put the focus on Palo Verde
Right.
High School, there are a bunch of charter schools in those areas as well. And so you have a mix of those students that are, congregating in that area as well. So it's not just TUSD students, and that's what,
Right.
the conversation relied on,
But
collaboration.
so typically the charters are going to be doing the same thing, that, unless there's some athletic activity or whatever, you need to go away, go find someplace else to be. Okay. Okay, well, that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tom. Doris, we'll get to you in a moment. We had a question in chat from Tony, and he asks if you'd please remind us what was in the Hope baskets and how you feel that contributed to your program's success.
Sure, and Lance, help me out if I miss anything. So we've included body wash, so hygiene products, a variety of them, also masks, toilet paper, water bottles. We've had clothing items, and we've tried to get them out, as quickly as we can. We collect things enough to make the baskets meaningful, but they might not all have the same thing because community donations, we're kind of just waiting for them to trickle in. But the majority of the things in the baskets are hygiene items, some PPE things, and community resources. Anything I missed, Lance?
No, I think it's covered. Well, we did have some gift cards, so we had some donation of gift cards. But yeah, I think you covered everything else.
And based on the feedback we're getting, I would say that they're valuable, because again, it goes back to building those relationships with the kids and families that we serve. And so when you have police officers and probation officers bringing in a basket that was put together by the community, Lance's example is a great one. I mean, I think it really speaks volumes that we're working together to get back to these kids.
Okay, thank you. Doris, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Did you give them axe No, I'm only kidding.
I was like, I hope not. I don't think so.
I love to spray that everywhere. Anyway, I was on a Zoom meeting with Child and Family Resources and the police, the chief police officer for Tucson. And they were talking about preschool and how they're having all this money coming to them that have been awarded to, I think, Pima County. Do you know about this, or for preschools?
I'm not familiar with that just because my area tends to be 8 to 18. So I wouldn't have probably a lot of answers on that piece, but I could look into it.
No, but what I guess what I was saying, I know that you're with the older children, but they were just saying how the success rate of a child that has been to preschool is so much higher. And maybe when you have your, you know, your block parties, I don't know how many you have, but it sounded like a big success, that might be something that you would want to bring in. I don't know what their access is to preschools, these children.
I think that's an awesome idea, Doris. And I actually think Child and Family Resources were one of the vendors there that day. And you're absolutely right. Early education is a big predictor.
But they've got a lot of money right now. So I don't know if that's something that you want to get in on the ground floor, or if that'd be out of your area.
We could definitely reach out and see what that would look like. Do you have any insight on that, Lance?
Yeah, this is my first time hearing about some additional funding. But
A lot of money.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like that would be a great stepping stone, starting point, so to speak.
Just as an interruption, actually, the board in this upcoming year's budget has $10 million to assist preschool children for low-income families to help them kind of get going. And it's working its way through the system, but that could be, you know, if they do, and they actually, I think I heard that it got expanded for even a couple years beyond that to kind of, you know, up and running so that you could get some of those kids in the very beginning kind of helped and assisted with that. So that might be what you're talking about, Doris.
Yeah, I am. That's what it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in what their outreach efforts will be, right? How do they get that? How do they get information about preschool and early education out to families?
Take a look at Chuck's, take a look at the board Pima early education program recommendations that are going into the county budget right now that the board's talking about with Chuck. And you can kind of get an idea, and that would be a good feeder to kind of maybe some of the older kids and some, if they got some youngsters or whatever, how you can tie them together and help both of them.
Great discussion. Thanks, guys.
I just figured you needed something else to do.
You're absolutely right, Doris. And I'm going to start my email with, I hear you have lots of money. That's what
they do.
Okay. Thanks, Doris. You can mute yourself now if you would. Thank you. We had a question in chat from Anita, and she asks, of the students you work with in school, does your work with them have an impact on keeping these students in school until graduation?
I think that's a Lance Meeks start out question, because that's a big part of what he does. Well, I'll let you shine, my friend. You do a lot to keep kids in school.
Yeah, but I think Anita is talking more about what we're doing for need, right? So I guess I'll just answer. I don't think we have that information. There has been an internal referral system of those youth who are in school, but that's something that the juvenile court continues to work with TUSD and the African American Student Services on. But if you're talking about for Goodwill, you know, we do focus on working with youth who are out of school and helping those young folks to obtain their GED. And if there's still focus on trying to complete that high school diploma, there's a high school credit recovery program that they can join, that they can enroll in. and they can do it within our location. So we do make those efforts to help young people stay with their educational goals.
And my apologies, oh, go ahead, Anita, I'm sorry.
I'm just going to apologize. The timing is everything, as BJ said earlier. The landscaper was right at my window, just blasting noise, and so I couldn't answer it, couldn't ask the question. But go ahead, Angie. I'm just really interested because of the huge dropout rate at the 9th grade, and that just seems to me that would just lead them right into the system potentially again. And so how do we? If we're getting them out of the system, are we also helping them to be able to move along with education in the process? So,
no, great question, and you're right on target. So that's a huge part of what probation does, because those are major risk factors, not being connected to school and community, right? Those are huge pieces, and part of what our probation officers, their work in managing cases is to ensure that those connections are there to help them build that. In terms of need, and I'm sorry I missed the mark on this, Lance, but I'm glad you reminded me. So part of the early work of need, and even before I was there, was talk of how do we connect Black youth with resources that already exist within the school. So that was the collaboration that Lance mentioned between the juvenile court and Palo Verde, African American Student Services and TUSD. So what happens is weekly, we look at the kids coming on to supervision, Black youth in those zip codes that we identified, and then we send over a referral to African American Student Services to say, hey, heads up, we had this young person come on into our system. Can you reach out and connect them with existing resources? We've been working on that process for about 3 years. The original intent was not only to connect them so that somebody within the school would follow up and try to figure out their individual needs and connect them with things that are already available in the school, but to connect with community supports and the things that are available, the organizations represented on need and beyond. I will say there's been a lot of, there's been challenges with that process, because from the juvenile court standpoint, we wanted to ensure we're not just sending you the names of our kid on probation, because that can be damaging too. We don't want to just label our kids. We want to make sure that they're getting connected to services. So there's been a lot of back and forth discussion to make sure that this is a process that is really serving our kids. And we just actually had a most recent conversation to try to work on that process as well. So I will say it is an evolutionary process. We're still working on it, but we are getting feedback that their staff are meeting with our kids and following up. And so I think there's still room to grow, but that is something that need developed and built.
thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Okay, President Paul, I don't see any other questions, so I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steve. And I'm going to say thank you, Angie and Lance, for the information on where needs is. I know we've helped out a little bit. I know we're looking to continue to help with that effort. We all kind of know it's important to get people going. Take a check out of what Chuck's put up on the webpage too, for the early childhood stuff, because I think that will be a good help going forward. You can tell I'm a county employee. But again, also in honor of your speaking here today, big thing with Rotary is polio vaccination. We'll donate funding to have 10 kids inoculated in your guys' name.
Awesome.
Going forward. It's not a lot, but you know what? We're almost there, and we saw what happens with the pandemic thing. So if we could ever get polio off the globe, it'd be great. But it's close, but not quite there. So we keep going after it. So I appreciate it. And again, I know we'll be continuing to pursue helping out with your efforts with the Bobs and other folks in the club. It's needed. It really is, to get people turned around. I've read some of the interesting articles about diversion and different things to get some of the kids and some of the lower offenders out of the prisons and so like that. You know, they got to have a pathway to be able to get a little bit of education and get some work and get back into a little bit feeling like they're part of the community. So everything we can do to help that, I think helps everybody. So appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you to everybody. And if you would like more information about, if you have any questions about NEED after this or about the juvenile justice system, please reach out. And Lance and I always have an ask, and our ask would be of all of our NEED members is just to share the message, tell people about NEED. We are working on a pamphlet which has the same information that the presentation I shared today has. And so, but just tell people that we exist and then refer them to us and we can answer more questions, but just help us get the word out. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was good. Good. I was going to ask Dick Carlson to do the sergeant, but he has internet problems. So we're going to have to figure out what he can, he's going to have to get something a little bit better than a string and a paper cup at both ends. So I was going to go through, I saw, and she's here, May 11th, somebody had a birthday, but would we already get you last week? Joanne?
Yes, you did. You did. Yes,
Okay.
I fessed up to it last week.
And you made it through, and you made through it too.
Yeah, I survived.
You're on the
That's a
other
good
side.
thing.
That's a good
Yep,
thing.
that's right. That's right. Next year's a biggie. This year was 69. Next year is a big 7-0. So
No. It's the anniversary of when you turned 29.
yeah, there you go. There you go.
It's all in the presentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I'm good, but thank you.
Anita, you gonna be here next week?
Yes, I will.
Okay,
but,
then I'll pass on that. We'll catch you on the other side.
okay, I just want to tell Joanne, that they're all biggies when we get to this point now.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad to keep having birthdays, folks. Real happy about that. Yep.
I was gonna say the only other one between now and then is Norm, and I didn't see him on here, so I will say, are there any happy bucks anybody wants to share? Nobody's happy? Do you know what this thing is, guys? There may be a burning party later today.
Burning Man.
Yes. Burning mask, yes.
We'll have our own burning mask party. I like it.
I'm putting in some happy bucks for the fact that most of this club is fully vaccinated.
Yep.
Yay. I'll do a happy buck.
Yeah.
I was out of town this week. My brother and his wife from Tennessee were out here. They have a house in Bullhead City, and I went up there and it was hotter there than it is here. So I'll throw a buck in for that.
So I was gonna say, not to go back, I hope.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I saw BJ did a whole bunch. Let's see BJ did some miles I saw in the chat. 61 miles. Good job, BJ. Saw that.
Hey, Paul, I missed last week, so I'm going to send some funds over Andy's way. It was the 11th anniversary of my 29th birthday last week, so
let's see.
I'll send some stuff over to Andy.
That's a number. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I get a different dues rate now. I don't know if I should even be announcing this because now is this middle age? I don't know. This is unfamiliar territory for me.
One more year to go.
Okay.
40 and under.
Yeah. So
40 and under. Okay. Good. All right. Good. Well, I feel good then. All that backache that I was just about to talk about went away. So I'm not.
For a year.
Yeah. For a year.
Anybody else got some happy bucks?
Well, I would be happy. I mean, I'm always happy. Like I said, I'm just glad to be here. But I went to the Casa Adobes Club meeting on Wednesday, and to my surprise, it was all in person, and there were no masks, and they had been wearing them for quite some time, I guess. And but it was just nice to be around people and be able to talk and everything, and it was really enjoyable. So I was happy. I was really happy about that. I hadn't been in that large of a group in quite some time.
Well, hopefully we'll be back there sooner rather than later. I was going to say one other. Allison, I wonder if she's at the airport. I see her on here. So Couple other things then, just to wrap up. Some interesting tidbits today in history. I thought this was a little bit interesting, and it's kind of a segue for what our programs will be over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Today in history, Lewis and Clark departed from St. Louis to explore the Northwest. And what we're going to be doing, thanks to Mr. Egbert, he's made some contacts, I think, with some different people in the parks and some of our natural resources out this way over the next 2 or 3 programs. So I thought, it's kind of neat. Lewis and Clark did the exploration, and I think we'll hear a little bit about some of the natural say that 3 times, things around this part of the community. So there. And also, here's one for you, just to get you going. Cape Canaveral was established today by Harry Truman. So, that should get you up in the air about things. Like I said, and then also a good thing for today is National Buttermilk Biscuit Day. But I like tomorrow's better. It's National Chocolate Chip Day. That's a better day. I think everybody agree with that one. And so for next week, the Chiricahua National Monument will be the program. So I think it'll be really interesting to, we have a lot of beauty out and around us here in Tucson. We're very fortunate with that. So to hear a little bit more about some of those places and how they've evolved will be good to hear. And then just as a wrap up comment, and I thought this was appropriate not only for Need, but for Erickson and the books and everything like that. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free, by Frederick Douglass. Think about all the different pieces that plays to with how we're trying to help out. And I think that's really important. As a couple things, we did close out the ITK grant that we had from the district. So we're all clean and good with that. And we're also looking at applying for a grant for next year to get and help funding for books for Erickson. So we kind of got those things in the pipeline. That's about all I have. Tony.
President Paul, can you stay on the call for a minute after we adjourn?
Sure. We're heading in the direction back to try to get a little bit more in person, and more to come. Have a good week. If you haven't been vaccinated yet, I think we probably are all over 12 now. So we probably are all eligible. Pablo, that maybe includes you too. I see you're here, and Arturo and everybody. So be healthy, be good. We'll hopefully be able to even see some people in person here in a couple of weeks. So okie dokie. I'll stick on the call with others if they need me. So thank you for coming. Thank you for showing up.